Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right in today to deconstruct a single mind-blowing piece of data about beach pollution. We constantly hear about ocean trash in these broad, sweeping terms. We hear about massive garbage patches and widespread contamination. But sometimes, zooming in and looking at one very specific data set can completely flip our understanding upside down. And that is exactly what we're going to do right now by digging into a fascinating breakdown of what is literally washing up on our shores.
So let's kick things off with a quick question to test your gut instinct. What do you think is the most common type of trash found on the beach? Seriously, picture yourself strolling down the shoreline on a hot summer day. What are you constantly stepping over? You've probably got a few immediate guesses popping into your head right now, largely driven by the big environmental campaigns we always see. Lock that answer in, because the actual data might just completely surprise you.
Okay, real quick before we reveal the answers, we need to understand the math here. The data we're exploring today is measured in thousands. Now, why does that matter? Well, it means a number like 15,000 actually represents 15 million individual pieces of trash. Yeah, million. We aren't talking about a couple of stray buckets of garbage. We're dealing with tens of millions of items. Keep that massive multiplier in the back of your mind as we start pulling back the curtain on these numbers. Section 1, the minor culprits, the bottom of the chart. Starting at the lower end of our dataset, we see things like cloth, glass, metal, wood, rubber, and other miscellaneous materials hovering between roughly 500,000 and 1 million items. Now, don't get me wrong, finding a million pieces of rubber or wood on the beach is absolutely a huge amount of debris. But in the grand scheme of the data we're looking at today, these materials are keeping firmly at the bottom of the pile. They're a problem, for sure, but they definitely aren't the primary drivers of the crisis.
Moving on to Section 2, the usual suspects, challenging our expectations.
Now we're taking a massive leap up the data. Boom, we hit paper waste, coming in at nearly 4.8 million items. That is a sudden, steep climb from those minor culprits we just looked at. And right above that, we have plastic. It hits exactly at the 5 million mark. 5 million items? It's a staggering number. And honestly, with all the powerful campaigns out there to reduce single-use plastics, it makes total logical sense that this is huge. I bet your initial guess a minute ago is probably plastic. But here's the wild part. It's actually not at the top of our list. Subverting pretty much everything we usually assume, styrofoam actually beats out general plastic. It comes in at approximately 6.2 million items. It's a surprising revelation given the intense spotlight usually placed on standard rigid plastics. Which brings us to Section 3, the number one offender, the overwhelming outlier. Okay, brace yourselves for this jump. The absolute worst offender skyrockets to roughly 13.5 million items. Just let that sink in for a second. 13.5 million. That is more than double the total amount of styrofoam, our runner-up. The gap between second place and first place isn't just a step up, it's a literal mountain. And the ultimate culprit is cigarettes, specifically discarded cigarette butts. Because they're so tiny, we might not immediately register them as the main form of litter when we're walking on the beach. But when you actually crunch the raw data of individual items picked up off the sand, cigarette waste piles up into a truly staggering dominant total. Let's bring it all together in Section 4, the complete visual picture, seeing the stark contrast. When you look at the full layout of the data all at once, the reality of the situation hits you instantly. There's this sheer, dramatic drop-off from that towering spike for cigarettes all the way down to styrofoam, plastic, and paper. And then it practically flatlines for the rest of the materials. The visual weight of the cigarette data just completely dwarfs everything else. It's not a gentle slope of pollution, it's an absolute cliff. If we isolate just those top 3 offenders, it really drives home just how extreme of an outlier cigarette pollution actually is. You've got plastic at roughly 5 million, styrofoam slightly higher at 6.2 million, and then cigarettes just towering over the whole scene at an incredible 13.5 million. It forces us to confront this reality. Yes, eliminating single-use plastics is absolutely vital, but there's this massive, completely separate elephant in the room when it comes to what's washing up on our shorelines. So here's the crucial takeaway. When a single tiny item dominates beach pollution to this staggering degree, how does that force us to rethink our daily habits? We pour so much energy into banning plastic bags and straws, and rightly so. But knowing that discarded cigarette butts outnumber plastic waste by literally millions upon millions of items, does this change the way you view everyday litter?
It's a powerful reminder that the smallest things, when carelessly tossed aside by millions of people, can create the most monumental problems. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep this data in the back of your mind the next time you take a walk on the beach.